Those are the opening words of the preamble of the United States Constitution. Those words signify that it is we, the people, who have the power of government. It is we who are citizens, not the government. In other words, government exists to serve us and not the other way around. Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Frederick, your host for Voices of We the People. Thank you so much for joining us for our podcast, which is about how we take action to address the challenges to our well being that are unfolding in Washington, D.C., and our local communities, and sometimes in our families, and especially in the State House in North Carolina. Our guest today is a community organizer whose commitment is much like our own. Democracy North Carolina's mission is we envision a government that is truly of, by, and for the people. So you can really see why we had to reach out to Marques Thompson to find out what it is they do and how they carry on their work and how they demonstrate their commitment to a government that is truly of, by, and for the people. I am so pleased to introduce my guest who daily demonstrates that voting and commitment can change our lives. I'm going to give you just a little snippet of about him, but he's going to tell you the real story about himself. Marques Thompson is the organizing director for Democracy North Carolina. He's equipped, I like that word, he's equipped with a decade of organizing experience and advanced training at Harvard University. And because of our commitment to coastal North Carolina, that was what was also intriguing. He is raised in Eastern North Carolina and dedicated to community empowerment. So, Marques, tell us about yourself.
Oh man, I'm so honored to be here, Dr. Frederick. And yeah, I love that opening. Is really powerful when you think about it's something that we say all the time. Oh, as organizers, I don't think that I count it. One thing that is super important, I guess, to know about me is that, like you said, I'm from Eastern North Carolina. My whole life, I've lived around these parts, and so really a country guy. So I say I bring a kind of blue collar aesthetic to my work. You mentioned Harvard, but I think about I'm much more familiar with farm type people, blue collar, working factories, that kind of thing. And I bring that spirit to organizing, that it's about the people, it's about a can-do attitude, it's about boots on the ground. And I've been doing this since professionally since 2008, I believe, but volunteer for many years before that, in organizing, working with like black black workers for justice, all kinds of civil rights organizations that just were community organizations that cared about black people, cared about young people, cared about working people, and as you said, the power of the people. And so that's what drives me. Last thing I'll say about me is I am a person of faith, and so I believe that's a big part of the work. That's a big part of the black community, and so I believe that informs or it definitely informs my work and how I feel about people. Even our enemies you're supposed to love, but definitely your brothers and your sisters and your neighbors. It's your duty to take care of them, and so that really informs the work that I've been doing these years.
One other thing I wanted to be saying is I'm curious what inspired you to that's dedicated commitment kind of work. What inspired you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I mentioned at the end my faith. So I grew up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and so we had this work of knocking on doors, talking to people about God's kingdom, and trying to help people to prepare for a life after this current system of things. But one thing we weren't focused on is the current politics, the current things that we could do in this system of things to like help people right here today. So there were a lot of people that had a lot of problems that I would meet. And I thought that the current government should be solving some of these problems today, that you didn't have to go wait until you got to heaven or to a paradise earth in order to have uh, in order for you to have security as far as like the police, right? Or as far as to have health care, like in this world, like you didn't have to wait to have good food or and clean water. These are things that should be happening right here, and that the government and what's supposed to help us do that. And I knew that if people didn't come together, we wouldn't get some of these things here today. And so as I changed my faith orientation and learned a bit more and grew spiritually, I consider it opened up that possibility, because that particular um, you know, or a religion didn't think that you should get involved in politics, and so there were limits into what we could do to help people today. And I always wanted to help people. That's something that just I just cared about. I cared about how people were living, how we could help people. And so when I changed, my spiritual faith, that opened up the possibility of like helping in other dimensions, helping from a political angle, helping from a social angle. And so yeah, so it was just more ways to help people. And and then right around that same time, there was this young man, you might have heard of him, named Barack Obama, who was running for president, and there was a lot of excitement around that. There was a lot of stuff to do that my community was asked to do. And so I learned a lot about organizing there. And eventually, you mentioned I had the opportunity to learn organizing from Harvard, from the same person who organized the who taught Barack Obama how to organize, the one that was running that organizing campaign for that for that presidential run. And so I got to sit at the feet of that professor and learn really what it means to organize, and really what it means, really to the point of this podcast, the power that the people had, and how powerful people could be when they were taught how to come together and work as one.
I and make a comment. I understand what you're saying about the religion that you were a part of, because I am familiar with folks who are involved there, and you're right. Politics is not something that they get involved in, but it still affects us. Still affects all of us. I got a question for you though that we talked a little bit about when we talked, and that is, what's the first thing that you tell people, that you try to help people understand about the work that you do, and how that fits in with the role of community organizing? Because I would think that it's kind of difficult to.
Yeah, it's a great point. So I think one of the first things that I help people, that when I'm talking to people for the first time, one of the first things that I do is to encourage people to know that they have power, that their voice matters, and that the things that affect them are affecting their neighbor, affecting their brothers and sisters, and that together we can address them. So that's the first thing, is to try to find shared, we call it shared interest with whoever you're doing. So the key to organizing is relationships. And so it's about, what is it where does your interest and my interest align? And then how can we build trust that we will work together for each other's interests? And what are the things we can do together that will further our interests? And so that's what the first thing is, just reminding people of the power that they have, and that together we have more power. And so whatever issue that they are most concerned about, whether that's criminal justice, whether that's economics, whatever it may be, together we do have the power to address it. So that's the first thing. We have a shared interest, and together we can work toward those interests, and the rest is all downhill from that relationship.
To follow up on that question, it's how do you what kinds of stories can you share today about working in communities and the difference that your organizing skills have made? One of the things that you just mentioned, about helping people understand that we're all in this together and we have shared interests, and some of the interests may be a little different. So it's to me, it says that in some communities, criminal justice might be an issue. In other communities, it might be healthcare that causes them to coalesce and come together. In your work, what kinds of things do you bring to, or skills do you bring to the community, um, to help them understand the superpower that they have as a voter? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, um, this some of the stories that I tell are of victories that we have had when we're working together. But you're exactly right. Each community, each person has a different issue, and so finding out what those interests are by asking and being very curious, and listening, and then where you can find common ground. And one thing about Democracy North Carolina and the work that we do is we try to make sure, as you said, that our democracy works for everyone. It's that the government is of, by, and for the people. And so what that means is, regardless of what your issue is, you should be, if the government is working properly, be able to go to your government and say, this is what I care about, this is what I want. And if enough people have that same concern and idea, that your government will help make that happen, right? But when our government is not working properly, then that's not happening. So every issue that a person cares about is affected by the way the government works, or the way our democracy works, or is not working, as the case may be. So that's one commonality, that if you care about healthcare, that's going to be a federal issue or a state issue. If you care about criminal justice, that's more of a local issue. And so one of the skills that we bring to the table as Democracy North Carolina is we have a good understanding of where the levers of power are for any particular issue. And so we can help a person to understand, oh, I need to go to the city council to get this issue addressed, or I need to talk to my to the General Assembly and the legislature to affect another one. And so bringing those people together, and also because we are in the community, we know other organizations, we know groups of people that care about those issues, and so we can help bring people together to try to, as I said, make the government, make our democracy do what it's supposed to do. And so we have a lot of examples for that, and I'll just give one briefly because it's the work that's ongoing. The Board of Elections, many people don't know this. This is a local board that is in every county in North Carolina. They control, it's a 5-person board now, and they control your early voting plans. They control where precincts have their polling places. So they control how an election is run. And so we can bring people to those meetings of that 5-person board, and we've done this successfully for many years. And we can help say, hey, the people want a polling place or a voting place in this location as opposed to that one, or they want voting hours on Saturday and Sunday and things like that. And so we're able to help the government because, again, a lot of people don't know where that power is, but we're able to show people that if you want more people to vote and you want more people to have access to be able to vote, then you need to talk to your county board of elections to make sure that you have polling places where the people can get to them, and to make sure you have hours where the people are not working so that they can vote. And so we have successfully been able to get early voting plans and changes to early voting plans or locations that favor the people, and especially Black and brown people who typically don't have that power.
How do you work with the farming community? Because sometimes the farming community, it seems a little reticent to get involved, but just about everything that happens around farming in different areas, fisheries or transportation. Or so how do you reach out and understand what the issues are in the farming communities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the ways that we would engage with farmers is through a couple of partner organizations that work exclusively with them. So there's like a Black farmer associations that have the goal of trying to promote farming, or trying to really to help Black farmers who have been oftentimes the victims of segregation or types of unfair treatment by the government. So that's one way we would reach out to that community. A lot of our work is around the Black and brown community, but also the the brown community. I know the terminology for different people is in flux. So I don't want to misspeak with that, but they too have a lot of engagement in the farm community. I mean, a lot of people work on farms and that kind of thing, and so there are other organizations that really have a strong hand in those communities. And so what the way we will partner with them is if they will have outreach to those communities, and then we would come on board and do trainings and that kind of things like around an election, and say, hey, these are some of the issues that are going to affect you. These are some of the issues that have been addressed in this particular election. These are the stances that people are taking, and this is how it affects you, and to let people have an informed decision when it comes to the ballot. And again, this year is an important year. I'm thinking about in Edgecombe County and Rocky Mount. Some of those issues are definitely Edgecombe County. Those issues are big there, and so making sure the public knows what their candidates are saying around issues around farming and farms and maybe immigration, and how it intersects with them.
I just have a big question and not a lot of time. So we'll come back to it after the break. But and it has the upcoming numbers 2026 election. Democracy, North Carolina is gearing up to address so many of the issues that are going to be coming up in that election.
Yeah. Okay. So, like you said, not a lot of time. So, one of the things that we're doing
Oh,
to
take your time.
so one of the big things that we're doing is we're be outreaching to people who voted in the last year's presidential primary, last year's presidential general election, but typically don't vote in our municipal elections. So we sending postcards to those folks. We're calling them on the phone to let them know that if you can vote this year, your vote really is important. But the idea behind that is if we can get these people to vote in this municipal election, that's voting 3 times in a row, it creates a habit of voting. And so that's one thing that we're doing this year to try to increase the base of these voters, that of the voters writ large. But definitely we think we have an opportunity with folks that vote in presidential elections but don't typically vote in municipals or in the midterms. And if we can get them to vote this time, that's going to help them to vote definitely next year and every year after that. And so that's one of the things that we're doing right now to try to make sure that we increase the vote in these very important races. The other thing we're doing really quickly is we have information in certain cities so that they can get an understanding of what their candidates, who's on the ballot, and what those candidates are, their platforms are, so that people can make an informed decision about voting.
Excellent. Let's go to a break and then we'll continue the conversation because this is a really important one to have. And then I have one or two other questions as we conclude our conversation. But I wanted, first of all, thank you for such an informed conversation. It is our honor so much to have you share what you know about democracy, about voting, about communities, about organizing. We'll be back in a few minutes and we'll continue our conversation. You're listening to Voices of We the People. Our guest of organizing for Democracy North Carolina, and we'll return to our discussion in a moment. You might ask, what's next for Voices of We the People? I'm excited that we're continuing our discussion on the power of voting. Representative Deb Butler, who is representing 18th District, will be our future guest. And we're also getting ready to launch our healthcare episodes, which will come in November. And so if you know anybody who would like to speak to healthcare, either as a recipient, as someone who's struggling, or somebody who's a provider, let us know. You have our information at the bottom of the screen. We'll be back in a moment.
Yes, ma'am.
Start over.
Yeah, you can go back from the break. I got it running, so it's no problem.
I'm sorry.
I said you can come back from your break. It's running.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Let me get rid of this. So we're back from our break, and Mr. Marques Thompson, Director of Organizing for Democracy North Carolina, and he was just starting to talk about how we're gearing up for the 2026 election, which promises to be one for the books, I think. It's going to be something that we really are going to have to turn out for and understand the issues. So, thank Mr. Thompson. We're back.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, so I can so that is a lot of what we're doing. I was talking about the municipals, how that works into next year. As I said, you those voters, if they vote this year, we hope that will we but the research tells us that if a person votes 3 times in a row, they're like 15, 25. I forget the number, more likely to vote uh, from that point forward. So if we can get enough people, that's going to help us in 2026. Another thing we're already doing is preparing the messaging for 2026 in North Carolina, because next year we have the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court race. It's a very important race. People need to understand the power of the Supreme Court. We are a nonpartisan organization, so we don't tell people how to vote. We don't tell people, anything like that. But we do tell people what is on the ballot, what's at stake. And that Supreme Court, if you think about things like gerrymandering, voting for felony voting, photo ID, all of these things are recent decisions that the Supreme Court has made. They are very powerful in North Carolina. And the U.S. Supreme Court has basically said around the issue of gerrymandering, which is when the governments redraw their lines because of the census. They'll, every year, every 10 years, they take a census. They see like where the population growth is. And if the population has grown in this place and not that place, they need to redraw the lines, the voting lines, to make, the maps. They're supposed to make the maps equal as far as, population and fair. Like, the maps should be, North Carolina maps are governed by like geography, by the state, counties, and just there's a bunch of factors that go into how they should draw the maps. So the U.S. Supreme Court has said that the states have all the power to do that, and if the states want to gerrymander, the U.S. Supreme Court is not going to stop them. And gerrymander is when they draw maps that are not fair, when they try to make it easier for one party to win as opposed to the other. Every party has done it. Democrats have done it. Republicans, now that they're in charge, they're doing it. And some of this is in the news even now. So the state Supreme Court has all the power around gerrymandering. They can tell the General Assembly, hey, you have to stop gerrymandering. There was a court case where they actually said that. The state Supreme Court said gerrymandering is illegal or unconstitutional in North Carolina. And then that same Supreme Court, state Supreme Court, changed its mind and said, oh, never mind, you have the right to gerrymander. We're not gonna stop that. And so that's the issue that people care about. And so that the Supreme Court has that power. That race is on the ballot. Voter ID is another one where the state said, hey, this is unconstitutional. That state Supreme Court said, in one hand, it's unconstitutional. And then they changed their mind and said, oh, you know what? It's fine. And so, again, we have positions on some of these, but what we're telling people is that they need to know the power of the state Supreme Court, and it should be important to them. And however they feel about the Supreme Court, we want to make sure that they vote accordingly, that they know what's on the ballot. So that's a big thing that we're already doing now. And again, it's kind of tricky because we don't want to, again, we're not in favor of any person or whatever, but we do want people to know what's at stake so that they can be informed.
One of the things I want to point out is that Democracy North Carolina has a wonderful website with really good resources about voting, about community action. And so I wondered if you would talk about what's on your website and guide people to what you make available.
Yeah, well, yeah. Thank you so much. Our comms team will be happy. I'll pass along your compliments. They'll be happy to know because they work hard on it. So if you go to our website, you will see some of the issues that we are and action items, that we are asking people to do. So right now, there's a couple of bills that the state General Assembly are proposing around like the DEI work. The actual bill number is eluding me. I want to say it's 301 or something like that. But there are a bunch of bills that are coming back up for consideration, and so we want the public to know about those and to call their congressman and tell them how they feel that they want to. We feel like they should not pass a bill that would be ending DEI in our state, and so we think you should call your congressman or your state representative and let them know that. So we have that kind of information, our action items. We also have resources like I mentioned what's on the ballot. There's a printout that we pass out that we give people that has information, but you can go to our website and download it for free. Other things like little wallet cards that you can keep with you closely as you get ready to vote, kind of telling you about early voting plans and that kind of thing. So yeah, we have materials there that you can print out, our action items, and then we have like some contacts. So we have organizers all across the state, and so you can go to our website and see what region you live in or who's the closest organizer to you and what events that they have happening this month. So you can attend that. And there's a very exciting thing that I'll just spotlight really quickly called Pathways to Power. It's a training that we did when I first was a volunteer with Democracy North Carolina, not a staff person. I was just learning about Democracy North Carolina, and I took this training, and it literally changed my life. It was one of the reasons why I wanted to be an organizer when I took that training. And it's about what you talk about, the power of the people. And so it was really powerful. And we haven't done it for 17 years. And we brought it back this year.
Wow.
I'm so proud to be there. Yeah, because we need it in this moment. Because as people looking at authoritarianism and they're kind of saying, well, this guy over here in the White House has all the power, or this person over here has all the power. We want to remind people, no, just like your podcast, the power resides with the people, and to teach people how to use that power effectively. So Pathways of Power, so you can see when those trainings are coming up. We've already done one in Charlotte. We'll be doing more in October across the state, and we would love for you to be a part of that.
They are great resources. Let me just also add that on October 11th, Marcus is going to be one of our guest presenters at the library in Sneads Ferry, which will be that whole session will be about voting issues, about what you need to know about voting, and how to tell if you're still registered to vote, because there's been some issues about cleaning up the rolls. So you need to know how to find out if you are still registered to vote and what to do if you find that you're not. So I just want to recommend Democracy North Carolina's website and Marcus coming to our Sneads Ferry Library and presenting all of this information. Before we close, I just have one other little question for you, if you don't mind. And that is this: given where things are now at this date and time, what are the things that concern you most and what gives you hope?
That is a great question. So I would say generally the thing that concerns me the most is the fact that people are seeming to want to have started to lose faith in our democracy and to lose faith in voting. You hear people on every side now saying, they don't believe in the outcome of a particular election, or I've heard so many people, especially our young people, say that there's no purpose in voting anymore, right? So that concerns me when I hear people saying that, and more people are saying that. Um, and what I tell those people very briefly is, voting is a lot like working out is to a football player. When a football player is working out, that does not guarantee that they're going to win the game. But you got to know that if they don't work out, there's no way they will win, right? They automatically have lost. So sometimes people feel like, well, if I voted and this thing that I wanted to happen doesn't happen, well, then my vote was wasted or whatever. And that's not the case. What voting does, that's step one of our democracy, is voting and making your voice heard. But there are many other steps after that, and we talk about those trainings. So don't lose faith or don't lose heart just because you voted and then things, you didn't get the particular policy that you wanted or whatever. There's more work to be done, but your vote actually counts. So when people think around the things of wins and losses, and they say, well, my candidate didn't win, but politicians all behave differently based upon the vote count. So if a politician wins by a whole lot, they act differently than ones that win narrowly. So even if your politician didn't win, your candidate didn't win, if enough of y'all voted and your voice is heard, that's going to change their behavior. They're going to have to hear your voice a little bit more than if you don't vote. So no matter what happens, it's like I said, it's like working out. You got to put your voice in the room. You got to make sure you're heard. And just by being in the room, you change the room. But if you don't show up, you don't vote, you're not in the room, you're not in the arena, and you're not mattering to our political process. So you gotta vote just to be in the game, just to be in the room. Okay, so that's number one. So the hope that I have is that things are getting to the place where it's very clear what people's agendas are. Every politician now is on TikTok or on Twitter or whatever it is, and they are telling you who you are, who they are. They're telling you what they care about, and they're making it clearer than ever. And so what gives me hope is that I believe people at their core in this country are good, and that they care about one another, and that they want us to thrive together. And so as people show who they are, I think it's going to make people wake up and say, okay, together is the only way we're going to make it, because there's some people that want to divide and there's some people that want to bring us together. And I believe that that's being made more clear than ever. And my hope is that people will decide to come together. They have in the past, and I think they will again.
I really, really have enjoyed our conversation. And I thank you for sharing your life's experiences with us about how we, the people, can make the difference, must make the difference in the upcoming 2026 election. I want to thank you again for a robust and encouraging discussion, and especially the lessons learned that you have presented, things that we can go to our communities and use. And you didn't expect this. We can call you and say, we heard it. Marcus was talking about it. And here's the number: 252 508 9575. Call Marcus. I am so much encouraged by this conversation. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being our guest and for being a friend, because this has been wonderful. Um, do you have anything to add before we close?
I just want to say it has been, yes, friend is for sure. Call me if you have any questions or thoughts. But thank you for having me today. This has been a thrill. And yes, we the people have the power. So thank you for having me. This has been great.
And to our audience, don't forget to go to our website, voicesofwethepeople.com, and give us feedback on today's program. You can also suggest future topics and guests. And we welcome sponsors and donors. In fact, we welcome them a lot. See our website for more detail and further information. And before we go, I want to give a shout out again to Tamika, who's been our podcast guru. We wouldn't have been able to do it without her from start to finish. And my husband, James, who has been our all things technical advisor person. And I want you to remember this. The Reverend Dr. King believed in the ability to change society through the power of the vote. Of our present moment is that both of these precepts, peaceful change and voting rights, are under assault and threatened in America like never before. And the thing that's interesting about that quote is he said that many years ago, but it's so true now. Again, thank you for listening to Voices of We the People, and we'll see you in our next episode.